You are not being paid for your work. You are being paid for pieces of your life, and you are giving them away faster than you realize. I used to think I understood hard work. My father worked double shifts in a factory and still came home smelling like metal and tiredness, sitting at the table with his boots still on, counting out coins, water, and guilt. I told myself that when I grew up, I would work so hard that I'd never have to feel that kind of fear again. The fear of a thin envelope in the mail, of a number you can't reach no matter how many hours you stand on your feet. So when I got my first job at a big company, I did what everyone told me winners do. I showed up early. I stayed late. I said yes to everything. Nights, weekends, just one more thing emails. My boss loved me. My friends said I was going places. My parents were proud. I was 27 and eating dinner from vending machines at 11:30 p.m. while the cleaning crew made slow circles around my desk. That's where I met Luis. He emptied my trash every night. I didn't notice him at first. He was just part of the background. The faint squeak of the cartwheels, the soft thud of the vacuum cleaner, the quiet knock on the door frame before he came in. I would nod without looking up, wrapped in spreadsheets and deadlines, half listening to my own heartbeat in my ears. One night, I was the only one left on the floor. The office was dark, except for the glow of my screen. I was hunched over a report that absolutely had to be done by morning, even though I knew, deep down, that nobody would remember it in a week. My eyes burned. My wrists ached. My jaw hurt from clenching it. Luis came in, carrying a fresh trash bag. Instead of leaving right away, he lingered for a second and said, "Long day?" I forced a laugh. "Just trying to get ahead." He looked at the stack of empty coffee cups on my desk, then at the family photo propped up beside my monitor. My sister, her husband, and my 2 nephews were in it, all of them squinting into the sun at a park I hadn't visited in years. "How old are they now?" he asked, nodding at the photo. 7 and 5, I think. No, wait, 8 and 6 now. I missed the last birthday. He nodded slowly, tying the bag. "My son just turned 10, he said. Feels like yesterday I was changing his diapers. Now he's almost as tall as me." He smiled, but there was a sadness in it. They grow even when you're not looking, you know? He left after that. I saved my file. I told myself I'd call my sister on the weekend. Then Monday came, and Tuesday, and the weekend disappeared under a pile of urgent tasks. I didn't call. Weeks went by like that. The same late nights, the same dim office, the same quiet visits from Luis. Little by little, we started talking. Not much at first, just scraps of life exchanged in the space between his work and mine. He told me he had come to this country when he was 21, working 2 jobs so his son could have what he never did: safety, a good school, a chance. His wife cleaned hotel rooms. They rented a small apartment above a laundromat that shook and hummed all night. He said it wasn't much, but on Sundays, when they cooked together and the whole place smelled like garlic and tomatoes, it felt like a palace. I told him about my promotion track, about my 5-year plan, about the raise I was chasing. I told him I was doing it for security, for my future, for my family. The words sounded noble in my own mouth. He never argued. He just listened with that tired half-smile of his and kept emptying my trash. One Thursday in late autumn, he came in later than usual. His eyes were red, like he'd rubbed them too hard. He spilled some papers when he tried to lift the bin and cursed under his breath, apologizing to me as he scrambled to pick them up. "You okay?" I asked.
It felt like a stupid question the second it left my mouth. He sat back on his heels, still holding a fistful of crumpled memos. For the first time since I'd met him, he didn't say, "I'm fine." "My son," he said quietly, staring at the floor. "He had a soccer game today. A big one, championship. He wanted me there." He swallowed, his throat working. I told him I'd try. I told him, "If I can leave work early, I'll come. If not, we'll watch the next one together, okay?" His hands loosened, the papers slipping back on the carpet. "Boss called me in this morning, said someone quit, we're short-staffed, need everyone to stay late." I looked at the clock. I thought, maybe I can still make second half. But then we had another floor to do and another. When I checked my phone again, the game was over. He sent me a picture. He pulled out his phone and showed me. A blurry photo of a boy in a too-big jersey, grass-stained and sweaty, holding a little plastic trophy. His smile was wide, but his eyes were searching for something beyond the camera. "He scored twice," Luis said. "They won." He asked where I was. His voice cracked on that last word. He wiped his face with the back of his hand and laughed without humor. I told him I was working. Again, always working. I thought I was being a good father, you know? Keep the job, pay the bills, say yes when they ask for overtime. Be grateful. That's what my father taught me. But I'm starting to think I'm trading the wrong thing. "The wrong thing?" I asked. He nodded. "They pay me in dollars. I pay them in moments. Moments I cannot get back. Seems like a bad deal, no?" That night, after he left, I wasn't able to look at my screen. I stared at the spreadsheet in front of me, all those neat rows of numbers, and for the first time I saw them for what they were: symbols, abstract, replaceable. So clean and simple compared to the messiness of a boy waiting at a field, clutching a trophy that weighed nothing compared to the empty spot in the stands. I went home, fell into bed, and lay there staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. An email from my boss. "Thanks again for staying late. You're a rock star." I turned the screen face down. It didn't feel like praise anymore. It felt like a receipt. The following week, the company announced cuts. Not at the top, of course. They never start there. They started with people like Luis. I came in one evening and found a different man pushing the cart. No quiet knock on my door, no familiar voice, just a stranger who emptied my bin without looking at me. "Where's Luis?" I asked. The man shrugged. They let him go, said they needed to restructure. The words sat in my stomach like swallowed lead. Later, I found Luis outside the building, sitting on the low wall near the parking lot, a thin jacket zipped all the way up against the wind. He was staring at his hands, turning his wedding ring slowly around his finger. He saw me and tried to smile. "Guess they don't need me anymore," he said. 15 years here. They gave me a plastic bag for my things." "I'm so sorry," I said. The words felt useless like tissue paper. He shook his head. "I'll find something else," he said. "We always do." He glanced back at the tower of glass behind us, all those offices and screens and artificial light. "Funny, no? All those nights I stayed late, all the birthdays I missed, all the times I told my boy I have to work, and in the end, I'm just a name they erased from a schedule." He looked at me then, really looked. "Don't let them do that to you," he said softly. You have choices. Maybe not all the choices, but some. Use them." It was easier to tell myself that I didn't, easier to believe I was trapped by my rent, my loans, my ambition, easier to say I have no choice than to admit I am choosing this. But that night, I went home and dug through a box in my closet until I found a stack of drawings my nephews had sent me over the years, crumpled, bent at the corners, some with food stains, pictures of spaceships and dinosaurs, and people who were probably us, all holding hands under crooked rainbows. I realized I'd never put a single one of them on my wall. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my sister. "We're going to the park today if you're free. The boys keep asking when Auntie is coming."
I stared at it for a long time. My calendar was full. A Saturday meeting had been scheduled. I was supposed to finalize a presentation. I could already hear my boss's voice in my head talking about team players and going the extra mile. My fingers hovered over my phone. For once, I didn't think about my career. I thought about a 10-year-old boy on a soccer field searching the stands. I thought about a man with a plastic bag of belongings and 15 invisible years inside a building that had replaced him in less than a day. I thought about my own face, reflected in my dark office window at midnight, tired and gray and getting older every year, while my life waited in another part of the city without me. I typed, "I'll be there." I turned off my phone. I didn't ask permission. We spent the afternoon under a pale blue sky while the boys showed me how high they could climb, how fast they could run, how loudly they could laugh. My sister sat beside me on a bench, shaking her head at every new story of the office. "They'd survive without you for a few hours," she said. "They probably would have survived without you for a lot of nights." I watched my nephews chase each other, their sneakers kicking up dust. For once, I wasn't half listening, half thinking about work. I was just there, whole. On Monday, when my boss asked why I hadn't answered his Saturday emails, I told him I'd been with family. He frowned and reminded me of my future at the company. I heard the threat under the words, "We can take this away." For the first time, I understood something that made my fear loosen its grip. They could take my job. They could take my title. They could close my laptop and escort me out with a cardboard box. But they could not take the hours I'd already spent where I truly wanted to be. Those were mine, locked in memory, answered to no one. Nobody, at the end, gives you back the time you traded for a paycheck. They don't hand you a statement showing the cost of each missed dinner, each ignored phone call, each childhood memory you were not in. The only record is the silence in the rooms where you're no longer expected, the way people stop asking if you'll come. Months passed. I didn't quit my job in a blaze of dramatic courage. I didn't move to a cabin and live off the land. What I did was smaller, quieter, and harder in its own way. I turned down a promotion that would have doubled my salary and halved my life. I stopped answering emails after a certain hour. I started going home for dinner. I went to parent-teacher nights with my sister when her husband had to work late. I took my nephews to the movies and let them talk through the whole thing. I visited my parents more than twice a year. Each decision felt like dropping a coin into a jar that only I could see, labeled "Time I Will Not Regret." Sometimes, late at night, I still thought of Luis, of how he'd traded years of nights for just enough money to stay afloat, only to discover that enough had moved again and again, always just out of reach. I wondered if he'd found a new job. I wondered if he'd made it to the next game. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office at a reasonable hour, a rarity a year earlier, but now my rule, I saw a familiar figure outside the building, holding a grocery bag in one hand and a soccer ball in the other.
His son was beside him, taller now, the same face from the photo, but with more definition. "Hey," I called out. Luis squinted at me, then his face broke into a grin. "You left late enough for me to see you before," he joked, "but early enough that the sky's still blue. Progress." We talked for a few minutes on the sidewalk. He'd found a new job at a smaller company, cleaning fewer floors for less pay, but also fewer hours. He was home for dinner most nights now. He went to games. He said it still scared him sometimes, having less money. But then he'd look at his son and remember what he'd almost given away. "Turns out," he said, bouncing the soccer ball lightly on his knee, "my boy needed me more than he needed new shoes." On the train home that evening, I watched the city sliding past the window and thought about all the stories moving through it at once. People racing for promotions, skipping birthdays, answering messages at red lights. People like my father working themselves to the edge of collapse just to keep a roof over their heads. People like Luis, like me, standing on the thin line between survival and sacrifice, trying to decide what we could afford to lose. The world will always tell you you need more money, more status, more things. But the world will never tell you when you have enough. It never taps you on the shoulder and says, "You can stop now. Go home. Go live." You have to say that yourself. One day, much sooner than you think, someone will clear out your desk or your locker or your little corner of the world where you did your job. The chair where you sat for years will belong to someone else. Your inbox will be emptied. Your login will stop working. Your nameplate will be taken down. The building will go on humming without you. The only thing that will matter then is what you did with the evenings you could have gone home and didn't. The weekends you could have shown up for the people you loved but chose to belong to your job instead. The countless small moments you either lived or sold. I don't know how many days you have left. Neither do you. But I know this: the hours you spend tonight will not come back. The choice you keep saying you'll make someday is actually a choice you are already making every single day you don't. There will always be another email, another meeting, another urgent project. There will not always be another chance to hear that story your mother only tells when she's a little tired and a little nostalgic. There will not always be another chance to pick your kid up from school and listen to them describe their day in chaotic, beautiful detail. There will not always be another chance to sit on a bench in a park with someone who knows your childhood nickname. You are trading your life for something. Just make sure it's worth the price. When the cart comes around for your trash, when the lights go out over your desk for the last time, let there be more in your memory than the glow of a screen. Let there be faces, voices, laughter. Let there be a life you were actually present for, instead of one you only funded. You don't need anyone's permission to start. You only need to decide that your time is not as cheap as they've convinced you it is, and then live like you believe it.